Have you ever heard of a war fought over horses? Not just any horses, but legendary heavenly horses that were said to sweat blood and could carry a rider to the heavens. This isn't a myth. It's the incredible true story of a conflict that shaped the ancient world, the Dayuan War. This epic clash, fought over 2,000 years ago, wasn't just about prize stallions. It was a high-stakes gamble by one of China's most ambitious emperors to project power deep into Central Asia and secure the future of the fledgling Silk Road. Get ready, because we're about to ride into a story of ambition, diplomacy gone wrong, and a desperate quest for the ultimate status symbol. The story begins with Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty, one of the most powerful and expansionist rulers in Chinese history. His empire was constantly threatened by the nomadic Xiongnu tribes to the north. These fierce steppe warriors had a critical advantage: superior cavalry. Their horses were faster, tougher, and more numerous. Emperor Wu knew that to truly defeat the Xiongnu and secure his borders, he needed to upgrade his own cavalry. He needed better horses. His prayers were answered when one of his envoys, Zhang Tian, returned from a perilous journey west with astonishing tales. He spoke of a kingdom far away in the Ferghana Valley, a place the Chinese called Dayuan. And in Dayuan, Zhang Tian had seen them. The magnificent, powerful, heavenly horses. These weren't just animals. They were legends on four hooves. Taller and stronger than the Mongolian ponies common in China, these Ferghana horses were the supercars of the ancient world. They were symbols of power, prestige, and military might. Emperor Wu became obsessed. He saw them as the key to his military ambitions. If he could equip his armies with these heavenly horses, he could finally create a cavalry force capable of matching and defeating the Xiongnu on their own turf. The emperor decided he must have them at any cost. This obsession would set the stage for a massive military expedition unlike any the Han had ever attempted before, pushing the limits of their empire into uncharted territory. Initially, Emperor Wu tried diplomacy. He sent a grand envoy to Dayuan laden with treasures, including a stunning golden horse statue, offering to trade it for a few of the finest stallions. But the king of Dayuan was unimpressed. He saw the Han as a distant, far-off empire and his kingdom's horses as a unique strategic asset he wasn't willing to part with. Confident in the vast deserts that separated his kingdom from China, he arrogantly refused the offer. To add a grave insult to injury, the king not only rejected the deal but also had the Han envoy murdered on his way home, and stole all the trade goods. When news of this outrage reached Emperor Wu, his obsession turned to fury. This was no longer about trade. It was a matter of honor and imperial authority. He would take the horses by force. In 104 BCE, Emperor Wu dispatched his first expedition. He appointed Li Guangli, the brother of his favorite concubine, as the commander. However, this initial campaign was a logistical nightmare and a complete disaster. The army was ill-prepared for the brutal journey across the unforgiving Taklamakan Desert. Thousands of soldiers perished from starvation, thirst, and exhaustion before they even reached Dayuan. The few who made it were too weak to mount an effective siege. They were easily repulsed and forced into a humiliating retreat. Li Guangli returned to China with only a fraction of his original force, having failed utterly. This defeat was a massive blow to the Han's prestige and a personal embarrassment for the emperor. Emperor Wu was a man who did not tolerate failure. The defeat only strengthened his resolve. He wasn't just fighting for horses anymore. He was fighting to restore the honor of his empire. He ordered the preparation of a second, much larger expedition. This time there would be no mistakes. He poured enormous resources into the effort, assembling a massive army of 60,000 soldiers. Supported by a vast supply train of 100,000 oxen, 30,000 horses, and tens of thousands of donkeys and camels. The empire's prisons were emptied to provide more manpower. This wasn't just an army. It was a moving city, a testament to the Han Dynasty's immense logistical power and the emperor's iron will. In 102 BCE, Li Guangli, given a second chance to redeem himself, marched west once more at the head of this colossal force. This time, the journey was still grueling, but the sheer size of the army was intimidating. Smaller oasis kingdoms along the route, which had resisted the first army, now quickly surrendered and provided supplies, fearing the wrath of the Han. When Li Guangli's massive force finally arrived at the capital of Dayuan, also called Ershi, the sight of the Han army covering the plains struck terror into the hearts of its defenders. The Han soldiers, much better supplied and more numerous than before, laid siege to the city. They employed sophisticated siege engineering, even diverting the river that supplied the city's water. The people of Dayuan were trapped, their supplies dwindling and their primary water source cut off. After a brutal 40-day siege, the situation inside the city walls became desperate. The nobility of Dayuan, seeing the writing on the wall and fearing the complete destruction of their kingdom, made a grim decision. They turned on their own king, the one whose arrogance had started the war. They assassinated him and presented his head to the Han commander, Li Guangli, as a peace offering. They agreed to the Han's terms, begging for their city to be spared. Li Guangli accepted their surrender. He entered the city, handpicked several dozen of the finest heavenly horses and selected a few thousand more of lesser quality for his army. He then installed a pro-Han noble as the new king, ensuring Dayuan would remain a compliant vassal state. With the heavenly horses secured and a new puppet king on the throne, Li Guangli began the long march home. The war was won. The Han army had projected its power thousands of miles from its capital, deep into Central Asia, a feat that stunned the ancient world. The immediate consequence was a massive boost in prestige for the Han dynasty. The smaller kingdoms of the western regions, who had once wavered in their allegiance, now saw the strength of the Han and hastened to send envoys and pay tribute. The Han had established themselves as the undisputed hegemon of the region. The Xiongnu, watching from the north, were now faced with a rival who could match their cavalry and control the vital trade routes to the west. The long-term impact of the Han-Dayuan War was even more profound. This military campaign carved out and secured the vital arteries of what we now call the Silk Road. Establishing military garrisons, the Han made the dangerous routes safer for merchants and travelers. This spurred an unprecedented exchange of goods, ideas, technologies, and cultures between East and West. Silk, spices, and philosophies now flowed more freely than ever before. The quest for horses had inadvertently cemented a global network that would shape world history for the next 1,000 years. So the next time you think of the Silk Road, remember the heavenly horses and the epic war fought to possess them. Conflict that proved that sometimes the quest for a single coveted prize can change the map of the world forever. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this piece of history as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button, subscribe for more epic stories from the past, and ring the bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.